It's Monday and it's time to mix. And today we are going to mix Daniel Smith's Shadow Violet. This is a 3 pigment mix, and we're going to see if we can't duplicate it. So to begin with, we need PO73. Now, I don't have PO73 by Daniel Smith, but I do have it by Rosa. So right here, I have the Rosa Gallery Flame Red, which is number 734 in their color chart. And that is Pigment Orange 73. So we are going to need some PO73. Looks like that. And to that, we're going to mix in some PB29, Ultramarine Blue. And of course, blue and orange are complementary colors. So that is definitely going to help us get neutralized. And then violet, I shared not long ago on a Monday mix that we mixed a purple from a green. Well, we are going to use PG18, just Veridian, and see if we can't come up with Shadow Violet. Let's get mixing. So we want to start with our PO73, PO73. Put some of that there. And just so we have a reference as we're mixing, I'm going to grab some of the Shadow Violet and I'll put it right here. Because seeing that on my palette helps me know if I'm getting close to what the original mix is. I tried this once already and I came very close. I will show that to you in a moment. But to our PO73, we have to have our Ultramarine Blue. And we're going to need our PG18, our Veridian. So Rosa calls this Flame Red. Then we have our Ultramarine Blue and our Veridian. Now both of these are granulators, and the Shadow Violet definitely has granulation to it. So these are definitely what get it there. Let's get these mixed together and see how close we are. So right now when I'm looking at this, we're close, but I think we need, look at that, it's not quite there. And this was one I had to play with a little bit. So I've got some more Ultramarine Blue. That's a bit closer. I can really see the Veridian that separates in this one. So let me just get a much bigger, going bigger. So when we try to mix it down, we kind of lose some of that. So we're going, that is a lot of PO73. To that, we are bringing in our Ultramarine. A little bit more of our Ultramarine. Getting most of that out of my brush. And our PG18. As soon as I brought the rest of that PG18 in, it was not quite there. So grabbing a little bit more of our Ultramarine. And our PG18. I think we are probably pretty close. Looking at this and looking at this, I think we're pretty close. So let's go ahead, put some water down. Let's give this one a try. I had wet this spot on the paper before I pulled this one out, so I am doing the same thing. I just had it ready to go when we started. All right. I always get nervous when I first go to test it. Like, did I get it right? Do I have enough? Get some of that out of my brush. Just like I did before. I cleaned it and then came back and pulled it out. Now that definitely needs time to separate because this has already shifted. I can see so much of the ultramarine blue that has risen to the surface in our original, the actual color by Daniel Smith. So when we look at it right now, there's more of the ultramarine blue kind of popping up. We definitely have the granulation. So that's looking good. But we need to give this time. So I'm going to set this down and let that kind of start to do its thing, separating. Let me show you when I mixed this earlier. Here was my Daniel Smith, and here was my mix. I pulled this one out a little bit further, so it did lighten up on the edge. But if I look here and I look here, I think we pretty much got that one. What do you guys think? Drop me a comment and let me know. I'm going to pause for a moment while this continues to dry. It's looking like it might still be a bit more brown. I might have to tweak this just a little bit, but I'm going to pause while it dries and we'll take a look. It's not quite dry, and I think we're a little off. What I'm seeing is, or rather what I'm not seeing, is I'm not seeing the Veridian and the ultramarine blue that I'm seeing in this one. Now, on my first mix, when I practiced it before I hit record, of course, nailed it first time. And I am seeing the Veridian and the ultramarine in the surface of this. We're going to go back to our mix and just tweak this a little bit. So I'm getting a little bit more of my ultramarine. And I'm going to pull some more Veridian. We just missed this. This is drying. And if I don't catch that, we can't have the actual color flooding in because that's going to definitely contaminate our sample. Oh my gosh, look at that palette. I still say that sometimes the palettes are the most beautiful pieces of art. My camera doesn't want to focus. Here it goes. These pigments are just gorgeous. Making sure that I have all three of those pulled back into the mix. All right. I'm going to try this again. Very wet. So here's my mix. Nice wet wash so that all those pigments can do their thing. And now let's grab the actual shadow violet. Just like I did last time, had the pigment on my brush, just dipped in water, and we're going to come right back here and put that down. Get more of my pigment here. I think we are much closer to this time. I just needed a little bit more of the ultramarine blue and the Veridian. So here's Daniel Smith's Shadow Violet, and here's my mix. When they're both wet, I think that is much closer. You see here, this one was still a bit warmer, just didn't have enough of the ultramarine blue and the Veridian. Now I am seeing now that it has set, some of that ultramarine blue coming up in the surface, but I'm not seeing as much of like the Veridian. So something was definitely missing there. I'm going to let these dry and we'll come back and take a look. While these are drying, let me just show you yet again. I do this often when we are mixing a color that granulates. If you don't want as much granulation, then you're going to want, I can pull my mix back together. Again, mix, actual color. So I'm going to do the mix. If I paint this wet on dry without a lot of water, I don't get as much. So there is my mix, which I didn't have a lot of, so my brush was a little damp. We're going to do the same thing here. Again, wet on dry. It may still separate a little bit. There's a bit of water in my brush, and I didn't have a lot of my mix left, but I think you'll still be able to tell. So mix, actual. I think we really got this one. This looks very, very close. So these are almost done drying. They are still just a little wet. I'm going to go ahead and give this a few more moments and we will come back for a final look and see what you think. While we're waiting for that to dry, can I just share with you? I just spritzed my palette where I had my mix. And I'm looking at how these pigments react to the water that's been spritzed on them. I want to try this on paper with really wet. This was from when I mixed them earlier. And let me just show you. When we mix that in and we give it a moment, look at how they immediately start to move. I want to put some of this on paper and give it a spray. Let's see what happens. Can we get any of these kind of effects on paper with this? It's going to be such a fun color to play with. So we're going to take a nice wet wash here. And I will protect my mixes up here when I spritz it. And I'm going to come in with our shadow violet, which just already likes to move in that wet wash. So there's a swatch of the color. I love my first mix. I think is gorgeous, even though it didn't come out exactly like the Daniel Smith version. I just think that color, yeah, I would certainly mix that and use that. Look at the texture. If you were painting so many different things with landscape, that would come in handy. I actually like this right here, maybe even a little bit more than that. You let me know your thoughts. But we can certainly mix a version slightly warmer, little less ultramarine, little less Veridian, and we get this. If we go to mix it just like the Daniel Smith version, you can see those now. They've pretty much done a lot of their separating. I think we've come real close with this one. All the colors, I'm seeing the different colors in my lighting because I'm recording this later in the day. I normally record earlier, but I'm seeing the ultramarine blue separating. I'm seeing some of the Veridian coming through, just like I do in Daniel Smith's version. So let me cover that so that we don't damage our mixes. And let's see what happens. I might have gone too heavy with the water because it wasn't this little bit of these effects. I think would be with less water. Like the first spray, I should have just stopped. I think I should have stopped with the first spray. But I'm going to let that kind of do its thing. Yeah, I probably have too much. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try it one more time. Because I've sprayed that, I'm just bringing some more pigment in. I'm just going to come in here I'll have to let this dry for a moment again, because both times it was dry on my palette and then it was me reactivating it. So I'm thinking I have to wait for my paper to be very dull and not shiny, not really glossy, but more matte. Okay, I'm gonna let that kind of dry a little bit and then we'll spray. While I was waiting for this to dry, I just did another swatch, straight shadow violet. Did not wet the paper first. And let's see. Cover these up one more time. This time I'm just going to do one mist. I'm definitely seeing marks start to happen here. Let me brush just clean water. It's definitely not as dramatic as the palette. Of course, you have the surface, the paper is absorbent where the ceramic is not, so everything can just like float around on top. But definitely with water, you can get some really interesting effects with shadow violet. You see those? Now that we see that's what that does, I'm just going to go ahead. Bring some more water into it. I'm not really seeing the separation increasing like we do in the palette. Just playing with introducing a lot of water. Definitely a lot of water. If I tip that, it's going to run. That's just a big puddle. A big puddle of water. We will see what it does. I think shadow violet is an interesting color. Definitely one that I don't use enough and am going to experiment with some more for sure. Drop me a comment and let me know. Is this one that you're going to give a try? I let this go ahead and dry just so I can show you. When that wash is super wet, look at how much we got separation in there. And there's the one that I did where I put it down really thick into the wet puddle. You can do some interesting things with shadow violet. So what do you think of our mix? Are you going to give this one a try? Is this a color that you like to use? Drop me a comment and let me know. I hope you're enjoying these mixes. Tune in next Monday where we will create yet another Monday mix. Will it be one of your favorites? Do you have one that you would like to request? If there's a convenience color that you wish you had or try to mix but just doesn't quite come out right, drop it in the comments. If I have the pigments, we will see if we can put them together and get it to work. Until next time, my friends, I'm going to pop another video up right about here that you might like to watch next. Keep creating, and I'll see you in a video real soon. Bye, guys.